welcome everyone.
Welcome.
So happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas. And I just want to say that makes us very individual because we are a religion and a church that believes, come as you are, come with your own belief systems and enter here. We don't tell you you need to do this or else you're going to be struck down. Excuse me, I'm a short person. We tell you that come, listen, learn for yourself. Consider this your own path in personal development to enter into a place that allows you to begin wherever it is that you are. So this is our 125th year of Cassadaga organization running continuously. Now just think about that. You know, quite frankly, without reading a book or telling this tale, you can imagine that we've been through ups, and we've been through downs, and we've been through sideways and draggy times. And yet we're still here and we're still kicking, right? And we're still having our service even in a different building when our other building is not functional right now. So it tells you that there is a strength in spiritualism. Cassadaga owns our bookstore and this building and a couple other buildings, and we have a bunch of employees in the bookstore, and other than that, there's no more than 5 people that work full-time in Cassadaga. Yet, we exist and we run daily. So that takes a fair amount of volunteerism, but it's not volunteerism by suffering, it's volunteerism, right? It's volunteerism by desire. You know, we have a lot of committees and a lot of people that get together, and our board of directors oversees all the decisions that get made here, but there's a lot, we feel ownership, and we feel a part of this camp and this ground and this land and these buildings. And it shows in our work because there are many people who just drove down the street one day in Cassadaga and said, you know what, I'm drawn to this place. Or they come, quite frankly, in severe personal pain and sorrow. Or in my particular case, it just happened to be at a time in my life was I was making a right turn. You know, I was just making a big switch. I retired from my position. I said, thank you very much, I'm going to stop now. It's been a lovely ride, right? And I didn't know what I was going to do. My husband said the most wonderful thing to me. He said, do something you love. And honestly, after 25 years of doing what I didn't really care for even, you don't know what you love. You know, it takes a little bounce back time. It takes a little stay up all night or get up early or don't shower or watch a lot of movies. But allow yourself just to balance out to find out who you are. Because quite frankly, I had to get up at like 5 in the morning, get dressed, neat and tidy, get on, commute for an hour and a half into the city, and then show up and be on the phone in my rat race. You know, that's exactly what it does. But it serves a purpose. You know, we have families to raise, we have mortgages, and we like to eat every day. And it's one of those lovely things that it serves a purpose. But one fine day, I woke up and said, my purposes have been fulfilled by this position, and I no longer want to do that, right? And I loved it, quite frankly. Other people come here because they've lost somebody. They've lost a loved one, and they're confused, and they're hurt, and they're longing, and they're missing. The basis of spiritualism started around the Civil War, around that era, when you can imagine how many people were longing for their loved ones to have communication, because they just left. They left their homes, and they didn't necessarily hear from them. No mail, no communication, and you didn't know what happened. You didn't know how they passed. They were simply gone. Entire male generation wiped out, right? And so there were many people that were longing and longing. And so spiritualism really picked up very big at that time. And unfortunately, like anything else, there are people that are frauds, but not everybody, you know. And if you have a positive experience within a spiritualist reading or a spiritualist healing where you actually feel the positive energies running through your bodies, it can be like a lightning bolt, like, you know, something happened to me. Or from an emotional perspective, the person tells you the one thing that other people would never know about your loved one. They say the magic words that you've been dying to hear. And it could be the silliest thing. It doesn't have to be an earth-moving thing. It could just be that, you know, they never tied their shoes. You know, that kind of thing. Like that, those shoes were never tied right. And that could just be where it's like, and yet I've read for people where I can tell them their mother came through, their father came through, their brother came through, nothing. Not impressed, really. And then I mentioned their animals. And that's what got them, right? So their animals started coming through, you know. Why it just is what it is. What touches you is different, you know. And that's why a real positive mediumistic experience is going to end up touching you where you are. Now, sometimes you can go for a reading And it doesn't necessarily touch on much mediumistic stuff. It might be all about what's going on in your life now, but that might be the priority in your world. And it needs to be straightened out. Anyhow, so here I am for the lovely things in writing, and I'm just totally off on my own positive tangent here. But just know that you're here on earth to learn about yourself. That's really what it's all about. People come and say, well, why are we here? What's the purpose of life? The purpose of life is to learn. The purpose of life is to evolve. The purpose of life is to allow yourself to learn something new. Now, we're in the religious season here, and do you know that there's literally 12 other stories that are similar to the story of Jesus? I'm not going to go through them. I'm not going to mention them. Do your own research, right? So 12 similar births and persons that started at age 30 to start to practice and preach, right? And how they died varies a tad bit. It's not all a crucifixion death. But do a little research, find out about it, because it's an eye-opening experience to find out if you're of that religion, that all of a sudden it's like what they've been telling you, gee, that's funny, they just reworked it a little bit, you know? And there's a lot of things that the holidays fall on pagan holidays. Why? Because they wanted everybody to go along and agree with it. I'm not here to try to change your religious thoughts. It's just open up your eyes a little bit. And that would be the same thing as you come to your end of your life here and you go to enter the other side of life, which is a real factual place that is proven by the science of mediumship. Somebody was asking about that in an earlier session. Some mediums agree to double studies, and there's also communication that's done from the spirit side of life where I am a medium, somebody comes to me, and I get one portion of a written statement. And then you can fly across the country, get another medium, and they give another portion of the written statement, and the third, fourth, and fifth, right? And so what you're saying is that infinite intelligence, which means that they actually think and you can communicate and you can argue with them and fight with them and tell them no sometimes, doesn't often work, but you could, is actually relaying communications between multiple people, and so it can be proven. And that would be the same thing. I like to say, like my daughter and I, she's a student medium, sometimes we do relay readings together. If I know somebody and you know somebody, you know them in a certain way, and I know them in a certain way. So although we may be mother and daughter, if I give you a reading about somebody, it's going to be this part of their character. And somebody else can give a reading about the same person and talk about a different part of their character. Now, in my individual readings, I often find the evidence received by me about a deceased loved one correlates back to what's going on in your own life. Not always, but there's a great deal of it has to do with what's going on with you. So I'm not the kind of person who's like, the message is. I don't actually do that in my readings. It's more what I'm saying and what they're giving me as far as information tends to relay back to you. So, you know, if you're having an issue with your pets, they might be talking all about their pets and how they took care of their pets and loved and cared for their pets. And so it could also be the same with children and other lifetime situations. We all have those pivotal moments in our life where we could use some help and assistance, you know. That's the other thing. Don't be afraid to ask for assistance. I believe in guides, but I believe that guides is a personal relationship. So for me, I'm not going to tell you a name of your guide. If I receive that information, if I have it, I will say it. But I'm not the kind of person who's going to go say, your guide's name is Lake Wana Wana. You know, I don't do that. I believe that your relationship with that guide is a personal relationship. And to me, it's more like a lake in the fact that the lake is there, whether you know the name of it or you ever know the name of it or not. You still have a lake there. So you have a personal guide as well as other guides that work with you. And if you sit in a home circle, a group of people here, I believe there's a group of people on the other side that are also working with you. So it's the individual relationship, and there's also, it can change out. So if you're working as a psychic or a medium or even a healer and you always do it the same way, and it always works very nicely the same way, one day they come along like, whoop, they change it all out. And it feels different, and it is different, and you just don't really know what to do. And that's sort of the learning curve. I believe there's an ethics are part of this also. As you put in the balls in the machine of life, and what you choose and decide to do creates where you land. So everybody can be psychic. What do you do with that information? When is it not a good idea to say something to somebody? When is it a positive idea to ask? I always bounce it back up to spirit. Give it to me in a way that I can say to this person. So in other words, I'm not necessarily going to say I'm aware of your grandmother in the grocery store. I don't do that, right? But I may say, what a beautiful ring you have on. My grandmother gave me that ring, and I remember. And then you can just feel that they're together. You can feel that you brought the two loves together, and it's a very special moment. I'm sort of one of those show me people. We were talking about it briefly before the service. I've seen people say, oh, there's a spirit in that window. I'm like, nah, a little Windex will fix that. You just get up there and rub that, and that will be gone, you know, that kind of thing. Or we've also had pictures of the orbs in this room. It's like, maybe a broom or vacuum could be a big assistance to that orb problem you're having, because orbs can be specks. Now, we'll also say, dust specks is what I refer to. I've also seen orb photographs that you can literally see inside of the ball. There is something in there, right? But I don't know that it's everything. So I'm very much show me, and I would say be a show me person. It's okay to question what people teach you. It's okay to take it all in, go home, digest it, and figure out which things need to be eliminated. It can be you're not at that place. If you read one book now and read it 5 years from now, you get totally different information, right? So maybe you were you not available to that information? That is potentially the case. So sometimes it's just, it doesn't fit into what your belief and what your understanding is right now, and it's okay to put it on the side. You know, you don't have to necessarily say it's wrong. You can just say, I don't get that. Let me just put that over there, and I'm going to move along and see what happens with my own personal development. Sitting in a circle, allowing yourself just to be aware, is not something that takes go to a special place, pay extra money in order to find finer attunement in life. You don't need to go anywhere. You know, there's no place like home. Click your heels. Stay right here. Be where you are and allow yourself to develop right in place. And listen to the people around here. There's classes available here in Cassadaga almost every day of the week now. It's an amazing thing, and we have a shortage of space, but we have a lot of good qualified teachers. And you can travel often to many, many places and find out that didn't make any kind of sense to me. But maybe there was a reason you were there. Maybe you were there because you meant to meet somebody. Maybe it was one connection that takes you to another connection. I often say when people are asking me about love, it's not about just finding the one person. Sometimes it's friends have friends, and that's how you meet somebody that makes sense to you. And we actually have some lovely love stories here. People have come and they've shown up and they end up meeting somebody and they become life partners. So this is a place that has many purposes, and we're still kicking, we're still fighting, and we're still asking you to donate money on a regular basis, but we also have 100-year-old buildings, and they do need to be maintained. I'm one of the lucky people that bought one, and trust me, it's a loving, spiritual office money pit. But I love it. You know, it's mine. It's my own space, and it's my own place, and I have my piece of Cassadaga. And I would say get your piece of Cassadaga, whether it's in a chair, in a group situation, or whatever it is that speaks to you. If you want to join us, we have an orientation once a month. We ask that you understand what spiritualism is, and or have served or been a member of another church so that you have that knowledge of what spiritualism is. And spiritualism really is something that I don't want to say, this is it. I would say, find out yourself, investigate, learn. Let your curiosity speak to you. Let your soul development open you up to see where that takes you. Your relationship with spirit is very personal. It's very much your own. So you'll hear people talking about, oh, I had this experience, or some other experience as you pass around. Don't judge your development versus where somebody else's is. Just allow yourself to be you and have your experiences. And you may end up sort of floating out of your body in bed some fine days because that's where you are in your development. One of my clients described a body that floated right over them. And as the body, this has been lying down in bed in near dream state. And as the body got over him, he looked down at the woman, and the woman looked down at him. And I said, she might have been just as surprised to see you, or that you knew she was there. You know, because I've had clients also tell me things like, well, I can't let my daughter go to New York City. You know, there's too many dead people there. It's like, what country? Where do they not die? You know? What are you going to do? Get a purely fabricated brand new home and put her only in that house? The land has history. right? The land has history. I also believe if you're having issue with being annoyed in your house with some sort of spirit relationship, please tell them to go away. You know, say thank you very much for the visit. Now it's time for you to go, and be firm about it. Because what can end up happening, as I describe it, when you pop open your psychic abilities, and or you can describe that as your chakra pops open, it's really almost like that radio noise of fizz. It's not fine-tuned. So you can pick up a fair amount of crud and stuff and noise. And what I'm going to say, lower entities, right? I believe there is negative in the world. I don't have to focus in on it. You don't have to focus in on it. You don't have to protect yourself when you're working as a medium because you're working for the higher authorities. It's basically, the more you become attuned, it's more like just turning on a light switch. You don't need to spend an hour meditating beforehand. It is recommended during your development process to understand that and develop that. But when I get up to heal, I don't spend an hour, sitting in silence beforehand. I get up, I'm prepared. The healing prayer becomes like my light switch. I turn it on and boom, I'm open and available, and I'm using myself as a conduit for spirit to allow healing to be received by that person. And that's the same thing when I do my mediumistic work. I say an opening prayer asking for the highest and the best for that client and all of my clients. But I also would like them to have a wonderful experience. I want them to have that meaning. I want them to have that touch. I want them to feel their loved ones about them. And usually that occurs. So that's a wonderful, beautiful thing. So spiritualism is here and is going to continue to be here, thank God. We're in a place and a space in America where we're actually quite lucky to be able to have free will and be able to say what we want to say openly and practice our religion. Sometimes it looks like maybe that's not going to be here for us, right? There's just these shadows of what's going on out there. Spirit is speaking to us. If somebody could turn off their phone, that would be lovely. God's calling. Anyhow, sometimes it looks like, our nation is in a place where we need to reaffirm ourselves and to remind ourselves that free will is ours, freedom of speech is ours. If anybody knows what that is, if you could please turn it off. Thank you. So have the desire to absorb and allow your soul to confirm the information for you. I remember as a child having these great arguments with my father about our religion of origin. I couldn't understand how a series of words was the only thing that would allow somebody to be saved. It made no sense to me. This is as a young child, and I was raised in a lovely Catholic family, and I just said, that doesn't make any sense. You mean people that have never heard those words, that live on other sides of the world, that live in a tribe where it doesn't have access, if they don't hear those words, they are not saved? I don't agree with that. And my father simply explained to me over many conversations that the 10 Commandments, if you live by the 10 Commandments, you'll be a good person. That makes sense to me. I'll accept that, right? That's enough. But the rest of it I didn't understand. And I realized that is a true belief of people, and that's why people travel into the jungle to reach out to people and explain that to them. But to me, they're very pure, wonderful souls. And where they go is not really irrelevant. By the way, even the Catholic Church got rid of, what's it called, limbo? Yeah. They dissolved limbo. They were set free. Oh, purgatory, right. Yeah. Purgatory. And those things confuse me too. You mean babies are stuck for the rest of whatever? I don't understand that. Why would that be? How can a loving God do that? And so these were just me questioning. And it doesn't mean that they're not right or that belief system isn't right for somebody. What it means is we have a right to question. You have a right to educate yourself. And so when you hear something, don't just take it on the surface level. Maybe go home and get a book. It's like our news. Maybe do the research about what's being said on both sides, not just one. It's not a one-sided sentence. Find out for yourself. Just don't listen to what you're being told. So I'd like to end with a quote from Maurice Barbanel. Maurice, I'm so sorry. I was just thinking, I'm sure I had other quotes in here that I totally skipped. Anyhow, this is from Maurice Barbanel. Maurice was a British medium, and also he was the editor of the Psychic News for many years. It is foolish to prefer ignorance to knowledge. Discard prejudice and preconceived opinion. Do not abandon skepticism, but search with honest and diligence, and you will be spiritually rewarded, for those who seek will find. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Reverend Van Cott. And during our musical interlude, our ushers will receive your offering, and we thank you in advance for your generosity. And our musical interlude will be performed by Eva Byard.
I would like a show of hands of people that were